Each one of us, many times in our life, will go through what we might call the dark night of the soul. And we will face people, circumstances, relationships, or turning points in relationships which test us in every conceivable way. Not all at once, but meaning that at any given point in time, these tests and trials and ordeals that we face in hell, in our abyss, they can be testing one or more aspects of ourselves across a wide spectrum, a wide gambit. We entitled today's talk, Explore Your Abyss, because just like bliss, it is not necessarily so straightforward. We'll give you an example. Someone who suffers depression. Now, we can speak on this point because we suffer depression regularly. Depression is a symptom. Depression is not a cause. It's not a source. Just as anxiety is a symptom. We can suffer symptoms and confuse the symptom for the source of our suffering. Because if you ask someone who's depressed, saying, oh, you're depressed. Yeah, I feel terrible. I feel awful. Oh, so why is that? Oh, because I'm depressed. I'm suffering depression. And if you ask them, well, why are you depressed? They'll very often snap back at you and say, I don't have to have a reason to be depressed. Don't you understand? People who suffer chronic depression don't need a reason to be depressed. And that's a standing line in psychology. Because the neuropsychologists and the physicians and the psychiatrists will all tell you that it's just chemical imbalances in the brain that's causing your depression. But all that is a lie. It is all a lie. It is a convenient, feel-good lie that people who are depressed tell themselves so they don't have to take responsibility for the source of their depression. No, there's no chemical imbalance that's causing your depression. The chemical imbalance is caused by what is causing your depression. The chemical imbalance is the intermediary that results in the depression, the symptom. But the source, the cause of the chemical imbalance is not the chemical imbalance itself. But of course, the causes of depression are metaphysical. And what does materialist science know about metaphysical causes of illness or disease or psychological conditions, mental illness? Nothing. They don't want to know. They don't care to know. It's all pseudoscience, they would say. It's all woo. So they prefer their materialist, deterministic, mechanical explanations for everything. Because that's how they maintain control. And that's how, because their rational minds work for mechanical nature, they work for the Black Lodge, that's how the Black Lodge can continue causing umpteen suffering to humanity and remain relatively untouched. Such that people are medicating themselves, alleviating the symptom, following the allopathic healthcare model, right? The big pharma model of mental wellness, by just medicating everybody. And we'll just physically, forcefully bring the chemical imbalances back into balance, and then the person will feel better. Oh, we cured your depression. No, you didn't. You treated a symptom. All depression is subconscious anger. It's subconscious rage. But even that can be a bait and switch. Even that can be not deep enough. Why? Because I suffer from depression. I can tell you, my depression is not caused by anger. In fact, if you really meditate on anger, you will discover that anger is very rarely spontaneously just pops up on its own. Anger is like the flamethrower in the hand of the pyromaniac who's hired by another ego. In my case, it's fear. It's fear and the desire to control, because the desire to control and to control outcomes is born of fear. They're two sides of the same coin. It's the same ego. And we've discussed this before, the so-called ruling elite and the Black Lodge that rule the world, etc. And they're trying to bring in all of these systems of control. It's because they're all ruled by fear. They're all possessed by fear. That's why I'm possessed by fear. Why we took on this burden as Attlas to be possessed by that demon, so that we would know our enemy, and that we could look them in the eye and know them better than they know themselves. This is key. This is Sun Tzu, Art of War. Know your enemy, know yourself. And what do we know about our outbursts of anger? We only lose our temper when things don't go our way. We only lose our temper when we're really afraid of something going bad. And if that anger is raging in our subconscious mind, it's draining us of all of our energy, which is the number one sign and symptom of depression, is you have no energy to do anything. You lose all your strength. You lose all your motivation. You don't have any willpower to do anything. It's getting sucked out. It's like it's getting siphoned off from within. That's because rage is having a hissy fit. It's throwing a temper tantrum in your subconscious mind, and it's just draining you. It's just sucking the life out of you, and your very will to live gets sucked out of you. That's depression. And it's anger that's doing that. But what triggered the anger? What caused the anger? What recruited the anger? And this is where we can turn to Yoda's teaching from Empire Strikes Back, when he's training Luke, and he says, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate. And that in us is absolutely the case. Not the hate part necessarily, but certainly the fear turning into anger, absolutely. So if you're depressed, and believe me, when you're suffering in depression for weeks or months, you're in hell, you're down in the abyss. If you think that, you go on medication or whatever, you're robbing yourself of why that depression exists. That depression is there to invite you to go and seek out its cause, its source, and know yourself. And if you understand that depression is caused by subconscious anger, and something is causing that anger, then you can simply look at your life and say, what am I not happy about? What am I upset about? What do I want to go my way that isn't going my way, that I'm identified to and attached to, that's causing all of this subconscious thing? And then when you notice that you have outbursts of anger, when you have outbursts of emotionality, outbursts of fear, outbursts of, whatever, Maybe it's gluttony. Maybe you're depressed because, you're trying to lose weight and you haven't been able to lose weight and you're angry about that. You're frustrated with that. Or maybe it could be any number of emotional causes behind anger. All of this requires an exploration of the very thing that's causing you suffering, in this case, depression. But we could do exactly the same analysis with anxiety, because anxiety it's the same phenomenon, only it's not anger that's raging in the subconscious mind, it's fear. And you know what that's like. The tension, the stress, and everything that's literally you're paralyzed with fear or you're freaking out or whatever, right? You're having a panic attack. Imagine that happening in your subconscious mind. And then imagine the ripple effects that would have on the surface. Those are what we call anxiety, because that's what's on the surface of in the subconscious mind. Someone's having a panic attack. Someone's paralyzed by fear. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Right? In the same way that rage is raging and raging and raging, but on the surface, you get depression. Right? This is not rocket science. It really isn't. It is self-evident. All you got to do is spend like 30 seconds to a couple minutes just contemplating or meditating on this in any reasonable way, and you'll like, yeah, that just kind of makes total sense. Of course, that's what would happen. That's what it would have to be. And if it is that, if it has to be that, then there must be something triggering that. And if there's something triggering that, well, now you know there's something to explore. There is something to discover. There's something to unearth. Like Indiana Jones, who descends into the tomb, right? Or Tomb Raider, if you like the more modern version. You have to delve into the tomb, delve into the dungeon, right? You're looking for that treasure, but it's buried treasure and it's guarded by these demons. But if you get stuck on the surface, if you get tricked and fooled by the surface level symptoms or by the simple explanations, and you buy the rational mind's explanation, oh, it's just a chemical imbalance. Here, we'll give you some medication and you'll be fine. Well, are you really in the abyss? Are you really facing what you're facing? Why are we going through the dark night of the soul? And then when you face things like poverty, losing your job, losing your apartment, losing your car, debts, going into bankruptcy, at every turn, your rational mind is going to be wanting to scapegoat and point fingers and say, "Oh, this is the economy. Oh, it's Justin Trudeau, or it's Joe Biden, or it's this damn company, and it's this greed, this and that, and the bad this, and the it's the international bankers, and it's everybody else's fault, right? Everybody else's fault." The fact is, if you are going through the dark night of the soul, if you are down in the abyss, it's an opportunity. That thing happening around you, that experience, those circumstances happening to you are happening. They were orchestrated by your divine mother. For what purpose? For what reason? There's only one way to find out. You have to go explore.